Going on YouTube, and welcome back to my channel, JoJo Speaks. Thank you all so much for joining me for this being my review for the Real Housewives of Atlanta season 17 episode 16. Couple things I want y'all to do before we get started. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, share, and press the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. Y'all know how I do these reviews. I always talk about the things that stuck out to me. So we start out with Shamia meeting with her lawyer concerning this bum rum or rum bum, whatever it is, that type of company that she's trying to have a partnership with. Apparently, instead of a partnership, they just want her to buy the US portion of the company at a wholesale price or something of that nature. So initially, it seems like the deal might not be going through the way that they want it to. I also mentioned that Portia bought her mom a new house. She sold her old house, bought the new house cash. I'm sure that's an amazing thing. Of course, Dennis was there. You cannot convince me that Portia and Dennis do not still have an ongoing, some type of something going on. Like, something is still there. Like, for a baby daddy, he shows up quite a bit. Quite a bit. We also get K. Michelle and her husband, as well as Angela and her husband. They're doing a sort of kind of sexual type of yoga class. Um, I just like Rock said, shout out to Rocks on YouTube, one of my favorite reviewers. I love the dynamic between K. Michelle and Charles, and I wish we would have had a little bit more of that because they seem to bounce off of one another so easily and so hilariously. So it was interesting not to really see them interact in this scene, but hey, it is okay. But after after the yoga class, Charles got Angela's legs up, and Angela's like, Charles, you didn't learn nothing. He's like, I learned how to put your legs in the sky. So I thought that was cute. Charles is my favorite husband on Real Housewives of Atlanta. Period. Point blank. But anyways, K. Michelle and Angela get to talking about Shamia. Apparently, none of the girls have spoken since their time in Scotland because everyone was asking everybody, have you talked to anybody since Scotland? And the answer was always no. It was always no. So there it is. But, K. Michelle's sort of kind of trying to speak up for Shamia a little bit, and I do appreciate this. I feel like K. Michelle is trying to ride the fence a bit, which I can appreciate because I don't think K. Michelle really wants to be forced to try to choose sides. And I can appreciate that about K. Michelle. K. Michelle came in hot the first 3 episodes. Then she kind of faded into the background for the rest of the season. So, I see that she's sitting next to Andy at the reunion. So I'm assuming that something big is going to come up from her from the reunion, but we'll see. But Angela's like, she's not the problem. And, Angela, at the end of the episode was saying that she's feeling like she's being piled up on. And with Angela being my favorite housewife from last season and this season, I've been a little bit disappointed in the way that Angela has been doing her dirty work on this season. Doesn't mean I dislike her, it's just I'm a little bit disappointed in that. But K. Michelle does tell Angela that she's going to meet with Shamia a little bit later on. We also have Drew. She is on a Zoom call or a FaceTime doing a little bit of rehearsal for a stage play, I believe, that she's going to be a part of with Pooch Hall. Pooch Hall, who was the star of the game. I think he played Derwin, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe Jose Sanchez is going to be in that play as well. It was great to see Pooch Hall. Lord, he is so fine, child. But it's great that they're going to be, working together. Drew is really trying to remain in her acting bag, and I can appreciate that about her. Drew is a hustler, and I can appreciate that. I really can. I'm not sure exactly how many accolades she's going to be getting. She mentioned she's going for that Oscar, and then her friend who was sitting next to her said, EGOT, EGOT. Okay, we know that we don't know, but I can only assume that she's sort of kind of joking because the thought of Drew Sidora winning an Oscar is really, really far-fetched. But shout out to Drew for, still doing what she does. I can appreciate that. I can't fault her for that whatsoever. We then get to K. Michelle and Shamia meeting up for dinner. And I don't know how I necessarily feel about K. Michelle getting on Shamia for doing what she did in Scotland. Here's my thing, like, the girls keep saying it was the wrong timing, the wrong timing, the wrong timing. When would have been an appropriate time for Shamia to bring this information forward? Like, when would I don't think there would have been a great time. It wasn't at Phaedra's birthday party dinner. It wasn't at some type of special event or anything like that. The ladies were simply just having dinner in Scotland right before they went to the club. So I don't get the issue when, although Shamia has never been my favorite housewife, I do feel as though she has been somewhat bullied in this season. I do think that everyone's sort of kind of piling up on her this season, and I just don't feel as though that is fair. It sort of kind of comes with the territory when you're talking about housewives, but I just don't like seeing it. I really don't. But a lot of times when these housewife shows, someone has to become the sacrificial lamb, and this season it's going to be Shamia. But I do appreciate the fact that K. Michelle took the time to, sort of kind of talk to Shamia. But, Shamia's like, I just want to move on. I just want to move on. And I can appreciate that. Also, Shamia's throwing a Halloween party a little bit later on in the episode. K. Michelle tells her that she won't be attending the Halloween party because she does not celebrate Halloween. She's a Christian. She only does Hallelujah nights and things of that nature. I remember when I was growing up, we had Hallelujah night at the church that I grew up in. And, I've never trick or treated before. Never trick or treated before. I've only dressed up for Halloween once, but that was as an adult. I think I was like 21 or 22, something like that. And I dressed up as a postman. My dad used to work at the post office and retired from there as well. So I thought that would be a cute outfit. But anyways, Shamia says that she invited Portia to the Halloween party, and she also has all the ladies taking molds of their posterior, their derriere, their punani, not their punani, but their buttocks. Shamia has the girls taking molds of their buttocks, and we'll see what Shamia wants to do with that a little bit later on in the episode. So instead of going to the Halloween party, Portia and K. Michelle are going on a double date to the bowling alley. And Portia's bringing Mike, of course. This whole thing, this whole storyline with Portia and Mike, with the information that we know of Mike being on a previous dating show in the past and being on different reality TV shows, things of that nature, it seems apparent that Portia and Mike never really had anything going on. However, during this bowling double date, Mike says that he's in love with Portia. Apparently, Portia says that he hasn't told her that yet, which I find very interesting. So there's that. Yeah, I don't know why Portia felt the need to bring Mike onto the show this season. If you really are attempting to have a true relationship with Sway, then just do that. But I don't know. Maybe Portia just wanted to spice up her storyline for this season. Who knows? But anyways, we're at the Halloween party. Shamia's dressed up as an avatar. Cynthia's dressed up as a bottle of Elmer's glue, which I thought was ridiculous. But she said that she's dressed up as glue because she's supposed to be the glue that holds these girls together. I don't know if that's necessarily true. However, I do see her effort in trying to do so. So I guess effort is better than nothing. But anyways, Phaedra shows up as the Godfather. I thought her outfit was very not innovative, but I enjoyed her outfit. She did look a little bit like a man, and I guess if that was her goal, then mission accomplished. Let's see. Drew comes out as a cowboy. And the ladies are there, and so apparently George and his wife, I believe her name is Ashley, if I'm not mistaken, the man George whom Angela claimed Shamia slept with, and whom George said that he had to pay to get with Shamia, something of that nature. So the ladies are sitting down discussing this particular topic, and Ashley is actually there. And, she claims that Angela called her for tea when apparently Angela just asked her if she knew Shamia. But if Angela asked Ashley if she knew Shamia, we know that Angela is looking for tea on Shamia. I know Rock said that, Angela didn't say that outright, so you can't accuse her of searching for tea from Ashley, but at the end of the day, if you know how Angela works, because I honestly do think that she conjured up that whole deal with her husband cheating last season and Phaedra being the godfather and, setting it all up. So, and I heard all the back and forth with all of the parties involved, the man that was involved there, as well as a worker, an employee who worked at that restaurant, who knew exactly what was going on. So there's that. But George comes up, and then Angela arrives as they are having this conversation. Angela's defending herself. She's saying, what she's reiterating what she said. Then she tells Ashley, what your husband has done. Excuse me, what your husband has done has preceded you. And my thing is, if this happened before he was married to Ashley, then what's the point of bringing it up in the first place? But anyways, George comes up and apparently when he said that you have to pay Shamia, he was clearly drunk. And, Angela just took it and ran with it. And then Drew says, Angela is vindicated. I don't think so. I really, really don't think so. But, it is what it is. These ladies, they do whatever it is that they want to do. But, that goes unsolved. And then Shamia's husband takes the ladies out to the front, and there is a horse out front. And this horse is not for Shamia. This horse is for Drew. So if you guys remember a couple of episodes ago, Drew said that one of her stylists, I think his name is Walter, introduced her to a man named Terry. Apparently, Drew was supposed to go on a date with Terry. When Drew got there, Terry had already left, which I'm assuming means that Drew was very late to this particular date. And so I don't know if Terry has purchased this horse for Drew or what. And then K. Michelle goes on to say, you gotta produce better, meaning that it seems like Drew set this whole thing up. And I would have to agree that it seems as though Drew has set this whole thing up. What do you guys think down in the comments? Let me know your thoughts on the entire episode altogether. Do you appreciate the fact that K. Michelle reached out to Shamia for some one-on-one time to kind of get a sense of where her head is at currently? What do you think about Mike saying that he's in love with Portia? And what is your whole opinion on this whole thing with Drew and this horse at the end of the episode? Let me know down in the comments. Be sure to join me every Thursday night at 8 p.m. for my live Pop Toppers and Social Commentary show. I go live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. with my sister Prophetic Fire Reiki, as well as our friend Bianca Edwards. We always have an amazing time talking about the latest happenings and goings on in the world, so join us every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Thanks so much for clicking on the video. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.